researcher in the West, Camille. How are you doing tonight, Camille?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good. For those who are watching, you may notice that the office looks a little different. It's not the same office I've always been in. That's because if you are a regular follower of the show, you know we recently moved. So we are past the unpacking stage, which is torture and nightmarish, because it just feels like it never ends. Like when you start unpacking a kitchen, like all the stuff for your kitchen, you just go, what the hell is all this stuff and why do we have so much stuff? You're like, there's really no need for all this kitchen stuff. Like we use the same 3 pots and pans all the time. We don't need 1,000 like to-go containers. Got through that. As you can see, the office looks a lot better than it did last week with Bill Wells. Microphone is now back in place, so I think we're ready to rock and roll here. And yeah, new place is lovely.
Can I tell a kitchen story that
go right ahead?
I have to actually do with moving, but okay. So I have my family lives nearby. I have not a huge family. Well, your family's huge. I have like my sisters live nearby. We all have a lot of kids. We get together for all the holidays, like usually at my parents' house or my sister's house. You know, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, all the things. And so my mom will always be like, hey girls, can I borrow your crock pots for like whatever's cooking? We'll have like multiple crock pots going for all the things. And so I think it was Thanksgiving 2022, my crock pot lid disappeared in all of this. Like it never came back. And I don't use the crock pot that often, but I use it often enough. And I was like asking all the time, I'm like, hey, has the lid showed up? Anyone have an extra lid? And finally, like, I started putting foil over my crock pot. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to have to buy a new one. And I could have bought a new lid, but it's almost the price of a new crock pot. So a few weeks ago, I finally ordered a new crock pot. It gets delivered. And I had been slowly but surely cleaning out my kitchen. Like me and my girls were going through all the drawers and the pantries and just really cleaning it, like taking everything out, cleaning everything out, purging, whatever. And so the crock pot comes and I like pack up my old crock pot without the lid into the new crock pot box. And I'm like, okay, I need to kind of rearrange a few things to make space for this crock pot. And I open up a drawer that I guess I had never opened, and there's my crock pot lid.
After all that.
It's like, you don't even know, like constantly texting my family being like, has the lid shown up? Has the lid showed up? I'm just going to order a new one. Not a big deal. And like, I even was like, hey, anyone want the lidless crock pot? Like if you guys use crock pots often, you can throw some foil on top and, you know, make it work. And they're like, no, thanks. No, thanks.
Well, anyway, that's how it always happens, right? You lose something and then you order it off Amazon and literally the next day you're like, oh, there it is. I found it.
But this new crock pot sat on my counter for like 2 weeks in the box too. And I was like, okay, I need to, you know, I'm got to get organized my kitchen. I'm tired of the clutter. Anyway, that is not what we're talking about tonight.
We're not talking about moving tonight. Tonight we are talking about... Well, you know, sometimes it's nice to give a little personal update, you know, so people know we're not just all about politics. Tonight we are talking about new laws that have gone into effect in California as of July 1st. So if you're wondering why July 1st, it's because the fiscal year ends June 30th, right? There's 30 days in June 30th. And so the fiscal year for California ends and they start new legislation in the new year, the new fiscal year. That way it doesn't start in the middle of the fiscal year because they haven't budgeted for it. And so there's a bunch of laws that went into effect as of July 1st. Now we're going to be going through all of them and we're going to be doing a little, you know, we're going to be opinionated on them. And what we're going to do, we're going to either say we hate it, don't hate it, or meh, as in like we're kind of indifferent. I don't really care about this law because I'm not gonna lie, there are several laws in here that I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't hate it, which is weird for me to say because I generally don't think the government should really be doing anything, and I think the government just, especially in California, oversteps what they should be doing. They come up with the most ridiculous laws, but there are some laws in this batch where I'm like, I don't hate it. Now there's some laws that I do hate, and there's a bunch that I'm kind of like meh about. So we're going to go through those, and if we have time, we're going to check in on good old Noodles, who is running his shadow campaign, supposedly campaigning for Biden, but he is going to New Hampshire, which, why go to New Hampshire? There's no primary. He's going to Michigan, which is a swing state. So, with everything that's been going on, Gavin Newsom continues to run his presidential shadow campaign. So, any thoughts off the top of your head before we get started, or any law you want to get started right off the top of your head that you can think about?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in.
Yes, please do.
This one, this is eliminating hidden junk fees. This was SB 478. This law makes it illegal for businesses to advertise or list a price for a good or service that does not include all required fees or charges other than certain government taxes and shipping costs. It does not change what a business can charge or what may be included in the cost, just that businesses can't surprise a customer with an unexpected fee tacked onto this bill. So, what does this mean? Have you gone to a restaurant and you've never been to a restaurant, which I know is a lie. I know you've been to restaurants. You've gone to a restaurant and you order all your food, your drinks, dessert comes, and then the check comes. You look at everything, go, okay, there's my drinks, there's my appetizers, there's my main course. And then at the bottom, there's something that says service charge, 4%. And you go, what the heck is the service charge? Probably under the tax. And you go, I have no idea why you're charging me a service charge. Isn't the cost of everything included in the food that I'm buying? And also, what I thought I was already paying for the service by paying for gratuity. I thought that's what the point of tip was. So that's become a huge issue. And California has now made it illegal to actually charge those fees. But there's always a loophole.
Yes.
There's always a loophole. So this is from Eater, San Francisco. This came out literally a couple days ago. It says California restaurant owners can now sigh with relief after Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill on Saturday, June 29th, that allows restaurant surcharges to remain legal. Significantly, Senate Bill 1524 went into effect immediately, superseding the state's junk fee ban that outlaws undisclosed fees from rental car dealers and ticket sellers until Saturday, restaurant service fees, and goes into effect Monday, July 1st. The new bill keeps restaurant fees legal so long as they present additional fees clearly and conspicuously. So they changed it at the last minute, like literally the 11th hour. It was you couldn't charge them, but now as long as you know that they're going to, if it's on the menu or they put it somewhere where you can see it, they can still charge those fees. So any initial thoughts on hidden service charges at restaurants?
Well, I don't like hidden charges. Who does?
Right.
And I think it's fair to put it on the menu, but now this is because they're going to be required to do this. If you have like a chain of restaurants, you have a whole lot of menus to reprint, and that they're going to, just upcharge their food. And drinks likely is probably what's going to happen, which, okay. I don't know where to go with that. I mean.
So my thought is I would put this in the bucket of I don't hate it. And this is coming from someone, I worked in the restaurant business for 5 years between college and when I went to law school. I was in the restaurant business the whole time. We never had service charges. That was not a thing that existed in the restaurant business when I was working on the East Coast. So this is coming from someone who's worked in the business, and I think it's kind of ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous because, well, first off, you go into a restaurant, you look at the prices, and you go, okay, these are the prices that I am agreeing to. And then you look, tax is going to be included, and you're probably going to leave a good tip if it's a good place and you get good service, 18 to 20%. I guess the lawyer in me goes, I have assented or agreed to pay those prices of which I am paying you for the product, for the service, and tax. Obviously, the government, I can't get out of that. I wish you could. I wish you could negotiate not ever paying tax. But then when you throw in the 4% or 5% or whatever they're charging, that's not something I agreed to. And it does come off as like they're slipping in that little fee. They're not telling you about it until the last minute. And what are you going to do? You know, you're going to be in a restaurant and start arguing with someone over a 4% service fee. Like after you've probably spent, I don't know, you went to a nice steakhouse or something, you spent $300 on the bill and you're going to argue over 4%. I'm sure there are people who do that. I'm sure there are people who are arguing over the 4%. But it just seems like it's the principle of like, I didn't agree to pay this fee, and now you're kind of putting it on me. The reasons for it have kind of varied, like why people say they need it. Some people say it's because of like the rising costs of supplies and goods and expenses and utilities and all of that stuff, which if that's the case, most businesses, if your costs go up, then usually what you do to cover those costs is you increase the prices. You don't add like sneaky little service charge fees, because it's deceptive in the sense of what are you agreeing to? You look at the prices of a restaurant. You base your kind of assessment of a restaurant on price. Like it goes into the whole factor of like, is the food good? Is the prices good? Is the ambiance good? Is the service good? So I think like if you're kind of you're kind of fudging the numbers a little bit with the prices, you know, you could just raise the prices and pay for all these things if everything's going up.
Right.
So that bothers me. And if you didn't know that this all kind of started, like, I think in San Francisco, this service charge, like restaurants doing the service
Doesn't
charge.
everything start there?
Everything sort of starts in San Francisco.
Do you have any idea when this started? I was going to ask, because I actually don't know, because it is a newer thing.
I'm not quite sure when it exactly started, but I do know that San Francisco passed something called the San Francisco's Healthcare Security Ordinance. And I actually have an article up that this guy went on like a huge legal campaign. His name is Xue. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Xue, Xue. He went to Sacred Taco in Cow Hollow, and his $153 check came with an additional San Francisco surcharge, equivalent to 5% of his total before tax and tip. And so after failing to find any notice on the menu or in the restaurant, Xu said he was incorrectly told by Sacred Taco staff that the additional fee was a tax imposed by the local government. In fact, like many restaurants, Sacred Taco uses the fee to defray the cost of complying with San Francisco's Healthcare Security Ordinance, which requires businesses of a certain size to set aside money for employee health care. So that's where it really started, I think. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's where it started, was they were adding this service charge in San Francisco, like 4 or 5%, because they imposed this local ordinance that you had to start paying for restaurant health care. And then I think it just kind of spiraled out of control from there, and more restaurants were starting to take it up. So again, if you want to pay for your restaurant employees' healthcare, that's your prerogative as a business owner. I don't care if you want to do that. That's what your business model is, and you're like, I want to take care of my employees. Great. Again, as someone who worked in the restaurant business, none of us had healthcare. Not saying that's the way to go about it, but if you want to do that, then raise your prices and maybe explain to your customers our prices are a little higher because we take care of our employees. And at least that way you can be like, okay, well, I'm paying a little bit more and I'm taking care of these employees. I think it's just the fact that you don't agree to this and it's somehow being charged to you.
Yeah.
That gets a lot of people upset.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for transparency, obviously. Not obviously, but who doesn't love transparency? But yes, when I go into a restaurant, I know that I'm not paying the cost of like the steak that they purchased. I understand that I'm, helping pay the lease on the building and the employees' salaries and all the other little, the business owner who needs to make some money. Like I understand that, but the service fee is weird.
Yeah. So I'm going to file this under I don't hate it. Although now at the last minute, I guess as long as they let you know there's going to be a 4 or 5% or whatever service charge, they're going to have to tell you and you're going to have to agree to it. But at least.
So sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, how do you flip this on the government? And like every time that they want to raise any sort of little tax or bond, then we need to see the exact breakdown of it too. And it should be, we need to know, like California is the least, I don't know if it's the least, but it's there at the top, bottom, however you want to say it, of transparency with where our taxes are going. And yet they want everyone else to be transparent with the money. Well, I would like that with the state as well. I would like to know where every little bit of my taxes go.
Well, you might be waiting a while. As we've discussed on this podcast, and we've had Andre from Open the Books tell us, they never distribute their state checkbook. It's one of the few states in the entire country that actually doesn't do this and let people know exactly what they're spending money on, which kind of, obviously raises the question. If you won't show us what's going on, kind of wonder, okay, well, then what are you hiding from us? Okay, so that's the hidden fees. Do you have any suggestion for the next one, or should we just keep going?
You keep going.
I keep going. Okay. Let's see. So we went over hidden junk fees. I guess the next one we can talk about is this one. It's date rape drug testing kits in bars, AB 1013. This law mandates certain alcoholic beverage license holders to offer drug testing kits for sale or at no cost to patrons. Places with a Type 48 license should have signs up letting people know the kits are available to test for date rape drugs. It will be up to each establishment to get their own kits. The California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control will not sell or provide them. So
that's interesting.
Go ahead.
No, wait, something. It's interesting that California did not decide to sell them with their, like, this is, this bill has passed. This is now a law, but I'm surprised that they're not like, and you have to use our kit because this is, the specifications. This is the one that works. This is whatever. But you can carry on with your thoughts and I'll add mine.
No, that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought of that. I'm surprised they hadn't figured out some business that wants to get in good with somebody in Sacramento and be like, well, we'll provide the kits for you if you give us this huge government contract and give us all this money and overpay for these kits. I'm surprised that wasn't proposed. I'm sure maybe someone along the way thought of that. But yeah, that's a good point. I'm surprised California didn't take the opportunity to try and give out some money to some buddies or something and make their own California date rape drug test kits to give out and sell because they could make a profit on it or something. So I don't think this is a bad idea.
Right.
I don't know how many people it might be one of those ones where it sounds great in principle. But I don't know how practical it is. I think, in a large bar where it's busy and crazy and hectic, which is usually where a lot of this happens, where, patrons get slipped a roofie. I'm not sure there's the wherewithal to kind of stop and go, oh, I'm going to purchase this drug testing kit for my drink. But at least it's there, I guess. Now, I don't know how much these kits cost, and I don't know if it's going to be like, do you have to keep a lot of them on hand, or do you just have to keep like half a dozen on hand? Like, I don't know like what the specifics are about it, but I guess I don't hate this one either. So I guess I'm 2 for 2 already on not hating. What about you?
Yeah, no, okay, so I don't hate it, but I do question. I know this happens. I know, like primarily obviously to women, but does it happen more often in bars and clubs than at home parties? I
Hmm.
so I was having a conversation with someone yesterday. We were talking about 4th of July, and she had spent the 4th of July in Newport Beach, and she was talking about how insane it was and how there are people watching, and there's these girls who are clearly like 14, 15, 16 years old, but they're all like, they're wearing basically string bikinis. They're walking around, they're getting drunk. And we're talking about like, who are, this is the perfect place for the creepy men to go and prey on these girls who are probably trying to even pretend like they're older. Oh, I'm 18, whatever. They're the ones that are going to get like the victim of these. Yes, there's going to be women in bar settings and clubs, but I do question, where does it happen more, in a public setting or in a private setting? And there was a few years ago where I think my sister was house watching, like she was watching my parents' house, and there was a party on their street, and all of a sudden a bunch of cops showed up. So my sister walked, my parents live on a very small street, she walked up the street to see what was going on. They were taking a bunch of passed out teenage girls, young 15, 16-year-old girls, to the ER, and they were like, she like heard them saying like, they all have to be, pull out the rape kits, they all have to be tested. A bunch of boys, 17, 18-year-old boys, like boys, had
Mhm.
slipped stuff in their drinks, and that was a home party. And so I don't hate this at all, and it is a problem for sure. But let's say that me and my girlfriends were young and we're having fun, and we, maybe we're responsible. We take an Uber, but we all go get drunk. I'm not young. I'm just pretending like I'm young in this scenario. We all go get drunk. Are any of us even going to have the foresight to be like, oh, wait, we need to check our drinks? I don't even know how you check your drink. How long does this take? Like, is this like
Mhm.
a 10-minute thing? Is this like, and then it's all weird to me. And I'm not opposed to it. I just wonder, like you said, like, how realistic is this? How much is it going to prevent things from happening?
Yeah, it's one of the, I feel like it's one of those feel good California laws where it's like it sounds good, but then in practicality, like how is it actually going to work out in real life? And I guess we won't know until it actually people start having to buy them, because as of July 1st, bars do have to start buying these and be in compliance. Someone in the chat said, Alyssa O said, additionally, it's recognized the restaurant slash bar cannot be held liable if the kit is ineffective.
I was literally going to ask that.
That's interesting.
That
So,
was my next comment question.
so I
Because
guess, yeah, if it's ineffective and something, you're not held liable. So does that, again, it's one of the, who's liable, who's like really responsible here. I don't know. It sounds great, but I'm interested to see how it actually works out in like the real world. But again, I don't hate it because I think the idea is in the right place,
right.
which is, you know, let's protect people from being roofied. Um, Funny enough, it's not just girls. When I went to our my bachelor party in Vegas, my buddy got roofied. So um, it
Somebody, you
happens.
said somebody did?
Somebody, yeah, one of my buddies got roofied. So
Oh, wow.
um, yeah, it happens to guys too. So it's not just girls.
I
All
did
right.
say primarily women. I didn't say it doesn't happen to men.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, throwing it out there that it can be men as well. It can be men and women. So on that point, let's move on to the next one. All right, this will be the first one that I hate,
Okay.
and I think you know which one I'm
Why
going
do
to
you have
pick
to
right
give away
now.
the punchline? Come on.
Okay, this one is ammo and gun tax. This is AB 28. I mean, anybody who watches this show is probably going to assume I hate this one. The Gun Violence Prevention and School Safety Act, of course, they always put school safety in there, puts an 11% state tax on guns and ammunition. California is the first to implement such a law, and the funds are supposed to go to school safety. Obviously, I hate this. This is stupid.
Right. It is.
They always throw school safety in there because that always makes it pass when it's school safety. I'm not sure what they're going to spend the money on for school safety. Are they going to add security? Are they going to add more metal detectors? Are they going to add different prevention techniques, more security cams? Like, what are they adding? What are these funds going to for school safety?
Crime prevention education.
Crime prevention, DARE programs. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I don't know, but that's usually when you read through it, it's always like da 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 education, and you're like, okay, what does that even mean?
Yeah, and so they always say, oh, it's going to go to school safety, violence prevention programs. Of course, a lot of, and it comes back to the same simple argument, which is that the majority, the vast, overwhelming majority of lawful gun owners who show up to a gun store, who willingly give over their IDs and do a background check, which now you have to get your background check. And now you got to, when it comes to ammo, they got to swipe your driver's license every single time. Like, lawful gun owners who show up are not committing these crimes, and they're not going to these places. So it punishes lawful gun owners who follow the law, who do what they're supposed to, and we get punished. So hate this law that they added 11% state tax on guns and ammunition. But there's good news. There is a silver lining. The FPC, which is the Firearms Policy Coalition, along with, I believe it's the NRA, the California Rifle and Pistol Association, the Second Amendment Foundation, they have filed a lawsuit in the Southern District of California in federal court, which is great because that's Judge Benitez. And anybody who knows Second Amendment jurisprudence knows Judge Benitez is a big supporter of the Second Amendment. So they filed a lawsuit saying that this was unconstitutional. It says, quote, this is from a press release from them, quote, California's unconstitutional and immoral gun tax is a modern Jim Crow law that targets people and rights hated by tyrants like Governor Gavin Newsom. Thankfully, the Constitution forbids California's political warfare scheme. FPC and our allies are committed to restoring the right to keep and bear arms in California and throughout the United States. Here, California effectively seeks the power to destroy the exercise of a constitutional right by singling it out for special taxation. If this tax is permitted, there's nothing stopping California from imposing a 50% or even 100% tax on a constitutional right it disfavors, whether it be the right to bear arms, the right to exercise of religion, or any other right, the complaint states. So I have a good feel. If I was to predict, I mean, this is super early already. I have a prediction that Judge Benitez will find this tax unconstitutional. You can't tax a constitutional right. And it will then get appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and then maybe it'll end up in the Supreme Court. Which is it's a valid question. Go ahead.
Two-part question, I guess. So this tax is in addition to the federal tax, which is like what, 10 to 11%, depending on the gun that you buy. So this is in addition to that. But so if you can't tax a constitutional right, and if this goes to the Supreme Court, could they possibly overrule the federal tax?
Yeah. I mean, they could say you're not supposed to tax a constitutional right. Like anything in the Bill of Rights, you're not supposed to tax that because it infringes. These are rights that you're supposed to freely be. Well, this is one take on it, one that I believe in, that you are to be able to freely exercise these original 10 Bill of Rights amendments. These are constitutional rights. These are natural rights derived from nature, derived by God, or whoever you want to say, derived from nature. Our fact of us being alive, these are our natural rights. And to tax those natural rights, I think, is unconstitutional. So they could, this could be a good question as to whether they could tax federally or they can tax statewide. So, but we'll see whether or not. I'm sure Benitez will say it's unconstitutional because that's likely who's going to hear it, and then it'll get appealed. The question is whether they stay the ruling on appeal or we're going to have to deal with 11% state tax for the foreseeable future. So that's why I hate it.
Right.
But
Yeah, I know it's not funny, but California, they've tried to basically get rid of gun ownership. They can't, so they're like, well, we're just going to make it unaffordable for you. And
well, yeah, that's one of the main tools of the government is when they don't like you doing something, they tax it.
right,
It's just basic, it's social engineering by the government 101, which is if we don't like you doing something, then we're going to tax it and then hopefully it goes away. If we want you to do something, we'll give you a tax credit or a tax rebate. So in California, they don't want you owning guns. This is definitely not going to stop people from owning guns or buying guns or ammunition. That's for damn sure. But it still sucks that you have to pay 11% on all this stuff. So, but in California, lawful gun owners are used to being beaten over the head with stuff like this. So, doesn't change how we practice or uphold our own right. So good news is somebody's already on top of it. Somebody's already fighting. And if it's the FPC and the California Rifle and Pistol Association, they've been very successful in a lot of Second Amendment litigation here in California. NRA, not so crazy about them, but FPC and California Rifle and Pistol Association both have been very good with litigation. Okay, there's a couple more. I mean, we can go through all of them, but we can do a speed round on some of these because I do want to get a little bit to Gavin Newsom and his shadow campaign. Building home ownership, SB 684. SB 684 is intended to streamline the construction of housing developments. It requires cities and counties to approve without public hearings or votes certain projects with 10 or less housing units in urban areas. The lot can't be larger than 5 acres. The law was originally applicable in single family residential zoning districts, but a late amendment now means the law only applies to sites zoned for multifamily housing. Okay.
that one kind of confused me when I was like trying to read what does it actually change.
Again, I think it's just permitting and approval for those permits, streamlining to get it through, to get more development through.
So like that means more government committees? I'm just kidding.
Hopefully it means less government committees, but I mean they're kind of flirting with the whole why is housing so unaffordable in California, which is the government is in the way, and the faster you get the government out of the way.
Yeah, okay.
So
they did this to themselves and now they're slowly unraveling it.
They're adding laws to create exemptions to get around the regulations that they've put in place rather than just start pulling away the regulations. Kind of like CEQA. Like they keep complaining about CEQA, which they put into place. And in reality, they should just scrap it and start all over again. They keep trying to do like these little amendments and like little reforms on CEQA. They just need to scrap it and start all over again with CEQA. But as we've said on this show before, politicians never like admitting defeat or that they were wrong. So they never repeal anything they've ever passed or their party has passed. So instead, they'll create these little carve-outs like this, which allow for just multifamily and like, I guess, 10 housing units in urban. So it's just more, I think it's going to be urban density is going to be, I think that's the sad thing about what's going on in California right now is that they're streamlining a lot of this stuff for urban development. So it's going to be a lot of apartments. But I don't know how that helps with like home ownership because you're not buying a home. You're going to live in an apartment in an urban area. They're just going to start packing people on top of each other in urban areas, which I don't know if like the infrastructure of any of these cities is ready for an influx of that many citizens. I mean, LA is already kind of like bursting at the seams with people. So, and I certainly don't want, a crap ton more people here in San Diego, in downtown San Diego. So
you have plenty of people.
We have plenty. We're good. San Diego's closed. We don't need any more people. We're all full. Thank you. Okay. Keep kids in school. This one, I don't know if you might have a better opinion than I do because I I don't really understand this punishment. Keep Kids in School, SB 274. The Keep Kids in School bill changes education code to ban suspending K through 12 students based on willful defiance. Previous code only applied to grades K through 8. A portion of the bill discusses research finding students of color, homeless students, students with disabilities, and LGBTQ plus students are more likely to be suspended for willful defiance than their peers. Do you have an opinion on this?
Okay, so this bill means now if they're acting out in class, like causing, I think it's not like high level stuff. Like this doesn't pertain to like if they're being violent in class, but like they're disrupting class basically. Maybe being slightly defiant or whatever, right? Is that my correct understanding?
Right. So according to CBS News, historically in California around the nation, willful defiance suspensions have typically been levied for low-level disruptions, such as a student wearing a hat backward, falling asleep in class, or talking back to a teacher. Willful defiance suspensions have been disproportionately directed at students of color, LGBTQ plus students, students who are homeless or in foster care, and those with disabilities, the senator's office said. Under SB 274, teachers would be able to remove a student from a specific class for unruly behavior, but the youth would not be suspended from school. Instead, it would be up to the school administrators to determine appropriate and timely in-school interventions or support for the student. I guess this one, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of like meh on this one. Like, I guess if it's like little infractions, like, you know, you're just kind of being a little bit of a rebel. Do you need to be suspended over being a little bit like some kids push the boundaries? Like,
right. They push the boundaries because they want to see how far they can, you know, go with stuff. Oftentimes, if a kid is like that, it not all the time, but oftentimes reflects on maybe their home life. And so is, you know, suspending them from school the best option? No, especially when we already have failing schools. But I could also see how kids are not stupid. And now this is so this is expanded for K through 12. So I could see how kids in high school will learn to take advantage of this because they can just get themselves removed from class. They don't like a lot of schools don't allow kids to dye their hair crazy colors kind of thing. And so I could see how kids would start being like, well, I'm showing up with bright green hair just to get myself removed from class or to get out of doing this test today or whatever. And I don't agree that they should be suspended for that. And kind of like I was talking to you earlier, though, ranting about, I'm kind of like just over this whole public school thing. My kids have never been in public school. I've already, you know, my first child, he's not a child, he's now an adult. He's graduated from high school. I homeschooled him all the way. He's never been in private or public school. I got 2 girls in high school, 1 in middle school. And I'm just like, you know what? We got all these parents fighting all the rules, allegedly fighting all the rules. They say they don't like this, that, and that. And then they just continue to send their kids to school. And so I don't care what public school does at this point. People are going to hate me for this. Do what you want in public school. Like, it's public school. They're going to impose all their rules. If parents, their only thing is to, like, you know, rant and show up at school for readings and rant, which is important, but then send their kids to school the very next day when nothing changes, and they continue to do that day after day, year after year. Well, they're never going to change because you're not pulling your kids out of school. So,
yeah, it's kind of like you signed up for this, and
you signed up for this.
Yeah, you know, if you're in their terrain, you got to play by their rules. So, and
I don't say that like I'm better than anyone. I'm not saying homeschool is the only option. I'm not. I'm just like, I didn't sign up for this, and I'm over here with my kids at work and not being run by the government. So.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an overwhelming amount of things, and you have the ability to take your kids out of public school and move them somewhere else, you have that option. You can do that. And like you said, if the only way they're ever going to change is if a lot of people are taken out of public school.
Right.
And they start to see people leaving public school in droves. But on this one, I'm kind of like, meh, I guess, whatever.
Right. It's not mean, like what they're doing. It's not mean. And kids shouldn't be just suspended for everything. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think they should be kicked out of school just for like being a little bit of a rebel. Maybe it's better they stay in school so that they can get some guidance and tutoring and mentorship. Like,
Right.
rather
Right.
than
We
just
have
sending them
great
home.
teachers. We do. We have teachers who genuinely care about the kids, and
Mhm.
so
Okay, this next one, I'm definitely this one I would have to say I'm meh on. This one is menstrual products in schools, AB 230. Under current law, public schools with grades 6 through 12 must stock bathrooms with free menstrual products. New law, AB 230, expands the requirement to public schools with grades 3 through 5, meaning free menstrual products must now be available to grades 3 through 12. And I am completely meh on this one because I
but
have no opinion.
does this extend to the boys' bathroom? And I'm serious. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Does it extend? What if? Oh, that's a good question. Because if there is someone who is transitioning and they want to be a boy, but they're going to the boys' bathroom, is it available there? That's a good question. Um, I don't know the answer to that, to be
I
completely
don't.
honest.
I don't know the answer to that either.
But I
Sorry.
feel like in California, I would not be surprised if they require that it has to be. Nothing on that blurb says it has to be just in female bathrooms. It just says in bathrooms, must stock bathrooms
Should
with
have
free
looked that
menstrual.
up because that's a question I really do have.
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
Because otherwise, I'm
Right.
totally all for it. So
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm just meh on this because obviously I don't.
it doesn't affect you.
It doesn't affect me, so I'm meh on it. Okay, Right to Repair Act, SB 244. The Right to Repair Act is supposed to make it easier for owners of electronic devices to make repairs themselves or take them to independent repair shops. This law requires manufacturers to make tools, parts, and software available for 7 years after the production of devices sold for more than $100. The window of time for less expensive devices is shorter at 3 years. Okay. I mean, again, parts in the right place. Meh. I'm like, whatever. Okay, that's why we buy.
I have a
repair.
husband who's total DIY repair, so I guess it's kind of convenient.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good lucky with my phone. Knock on wood. Not a lot of stuff happens to it. I know there are businesses that do this. That like you can go on Yelp and there's like iPhone repair and all that stuff. I mean, sure, you can make the tools and like all that stuff available, but like if you're not an expert at repairing a supercomputer in the palm of your hand, like I don't know how success. Like you could require that tools be provided to me to fix my car. It doesn't mean I
Right.
know how to fix my car. Like
Right. I'm assuming this has a lot to do with like washing machines. I can't think of other appliances right now, and I don't know why. Refrigerator.
Refrigerators, yeah, all that stuff. I mean, sure, if you want to be a DIY person and do it all yourself, go right ahead. I mean, I think that's better that we start to repair stuff more than just throw it out and be such a disposable. It used to be, back in the good old days, when things broke, people used to fix them, and then we would have them for a long time.
Living in Sioux Crazy, California, are we now venturing into weird territory where somebody tries to fix their dryer, but they didn't unplug it first, and then they get burnt, and then they sue? Like I always go down these paths, and I know that's weird, but that's
it's actually not a bad question. Because now if you're incumbent, if the manufacturer is incumbent to provide the tools and the parts and the software and instructions, what if those instructions are not clear and then they hurt themselves?
They like lose a finger in the garbage disposal.
Yeah, like, then you could sue the manufacturer and say like your instructions were not clear. So
yeah,
definitely possible. This one I'm mad on. I'm like, whatever. So
yeah, it's like I said, like my husband will probably appreciate that. I mean, he genuinely will probably be like, "Woo!" got this new appliances. I got all the tools. So when it comes time to fix it,
I can
I'm
just do it
set.
myself. Okay, so let's see. A couple more, and then we'll look at Noodles doing his shadow campaign. This one is security deposit cap, AB 12. Under AB 12, landlords can't ask for a security deposit greater than 1 month's rent. It's designed to make housing more accessible and affordable, since some landlords have previously asked for 2 to 3 months' rent. Landlords are still allowed to seek damages from tenants if repairs exceed the security deposit amount. And I actually pulled this up because I was curious. There are exceptions. There is an exception for small landlords with a maximum of 4 rental units and 2 properties total. They can still ask for 2 months' rent as a rental deposit. All other landlords are capped at 1 month's rent. So, also, there's something I found a PDF from Rob Bonta's office. It says landlords can only use security deposits for the following specified expenses: past due rent, the cost of repairing damages caused by tenants or their guests, not including ordinary wear and tear, the cost of cleaning the property so that it is clean as when the tenant first moved in, the cost of replacing or restoring the landlord's personal property, such as furniture, but only if the rental agreement says this is allowed. And it may not be used for damages that were already there when the tenant moved in, unreasonable or unnecessary expenses, or ordinary wear and tear. Which is interesting because I feel like they use security deposits a lot for wear and tear. I've definitely rented my fair share of apartments and stuff in the past 10 years. And I feel like every time I want to get my security deposit back, they're like, oh, nope, we had to come in and we had to paint, and painting was $2,000.
And you didn't fight it, Phil?
You know, you can sit there and fight it all you want, but like, what are you going to do? They're going to just
Well,
show
we
you.
took our landlord 15 years ago to small claims court and won.
Oh, really?
He did not give us the deposit back within 30 days, which is the law in California, and they have to give you an itemized, like, what did they use it for? So we had the house. We were renting a house. We had it professionally cleaned, and the carpets professionally cleaned before we moved out. And then he didn't give us back our deposit. And when we asked for it, he got all weird, and then finally sent us an itemized receipt that somehow came to the exact amount of the security deposit. And he like made up a bunch of things that we knew were not true. So we took him to small claims court, and we won. And in fact, the judge granted us more money than we had asked for. And then he mailed us the check with a Post-it note that says, "The stupid law has no justice." And I was like, cute, but I'm the one depositing the check right now.
That's cute, but I won. So thank you for giving me more money. It's always funny how it's always the professional carpet cleaning. They always hit you up with like, we needed to bring in professional carpet cleaners and it cost $1,000. I'm like, bro, this was a studio apartment. There was like no carpet in this place.
There was only one room. I think the living room had carpeting and everything else was hard floors. So we paid to have it clean.
Yeah, I don't know who they find. They must just find like people they know. And they're like, yeah, come on in and do the cleaning. We'll pay you $1,000 for it so that we don't have to give their security deposit back. Okay, last one, and then we'll watch some videos, some short videos with Noodles. Workplace Violence Prevention, SB 553. This law requires employers to develop and implement workplace violence prevention plans. It applies to almost all employers with limited exceptions. The plan must be in writing, easily accessible, and contain an anti-retaliation provision. Employers must also have workplace violence incident logs and provide staff with annual training about the law, how to report incidents, and keep a record of the training. Actually, I just realized we didn't give our opinion. Is it hate, don't hate, or meh on the security deposit?
I was meh. I mean, it's helpful. Rent is insane right now, as you know. So yeah, that is one way to. I guess I love it then because you've been screwed over, and
yeah, I don't hate it. I guess a lot of people might be like, well, you should be able to do with your property what you want. And it's like, yeah.
Yes and no.
Sure. But when you enter that whole like rental land, like parameters kind of change when you enter rental land. Doesn't mean there's the exception if you are someone like, let's say, our landlord who doesn't own like an apartment complex and he wants to do it. That's up to his prerogative, but it does prevent like the big apartment companies and property management from asking for 2 or 3 months rent, which is insane. That's a lot of money to ask for like 2 or 3 months.
A lot of
rent.
people can't afford that, and we don't want people on the streets. So
yeah. So don't hate it. So far it's been a good, there's only one law that I hate. And so far it's been a lot of meh, like I don't really care and don't hate it. This last one, workplace violence prevention. I mean, I don't hate it. I'm sure I'll hate it when I have to go through like a 3-hour online training at work.
Can we talk about workplace violence?
Sure.
Obviously there was an incident or 2 or 3 that happened to bring about this law. I want to know what the heck happened. Like, is that a thing? I've never been in a violent workplace.
Yeah, I don't know what qualifies as workplace violence, like people beating each other up. I
know I'm being really naive in this, but I'm just picturing like my last job in an office setting. And I'm like picturing like people throwing like file folders at each other in anger. And I'm not making fun of this. I'm genuinely like, what happened? Where is this happening? Who's getting violent?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard a lot of stories of people like beating the crap out of each other at work. Like sexual harassment and that probably happens way more than people want to talk about it. And that's why we have required training.
Right.
What else do you need to know? Like, I guess how to not engage in workplace violence, like don't punch your coworker in the face.
Well, yeah. What is violence now? Like,
is violence spoken as well? Can violence be spoken?
But that's again, my question is words violence? Or words. How I genuinely don't understand this one. And I'm all for no workplace violence. I'm all for no violence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want violence anywhere. But I guess I haven't heard of a lot of workplace violence happening where like we need to require businesses to train to stop workplace violence. I feel like it's kind of common sense. Like, don't beat the crap out of your workers or your bosses. Like, just don't do that.
Does this extend to outside of work hours? Like if you and another lawyer have a little thing and you're like, all right, meet me, on Saturday in the parking lot. Like,
we're like the Jets and the Sharks and we're going to throw down or something.
And I know you're not going to do that, but like, where does this go? Where, like, I genuinely don't understand this. I guess I need to do more reading on it.
Yeah. I mean, based on that little blurb, I don't hate it. Don't beat up people. But again, like I said, I'll probably hate it when we're all required at work to take a 3-hour seminar on it or something.
Do they test you after the seminars?
Well, I had to do the sexual harassment training, which is required. And then they like have little quizzes at the end. It's like 9 chapters of like all things you have to go over regarding it. And it's like, it took forever and you can't fast forward. If
you don't pass the little quiz or test, you have to like restart the chapter, No,
they just keep giving you chances to like take it over. Like just keep answering the question until you get it right. So,
okay.
But yeah, it took a long time. I was like, I did it when I first got there. I was like, this is like 3
I'm just
hours.
Curious. Are you going to now do this again for workplace violence?
If I do, I will let you know. And then
Are you going to get violent if you have to?
I might get violent.
I'll see myself.
Would that be ironic would that be ironic if you got violent because you're taking a workplace violence? You're like, I just can't take it anymore. And you start throwing stuff and breaking stuff.
And okay.
You're like, I'm too busy for this crap. I can't do this. Rock. Start throwing stuff all over the place.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what Noodles has been up to with his shadow campaign. I call it a shadow campaign because as we all know, Biden did not do well at the debate. And I'm not overstating that. I think everybody in the world is kind of saying he did not do very well. Some people said he crashed and burned. Some people said it was the worst debate performance of all time. And obviously with that came a lot of machinations and hand-wringing over who should replace Biden. And obviously Gavin Newsom, just as we've been saying, he's been putting himself out there, just kind of waiting in the wings, being like, I can raise all this money. Look at how charismatic I am. I go to all these places. He did that like campaign for democracy tour through like Alabama or something. Like he's slowly been putting himself out there like, well, if Biden turns into a demented vegetable, I'm standing right here and I'd slide right in perfectly. He's got money. He's got the credentials. So since then he says
why we didn't just talk about any insane laws. Like, we don't like the gun law, but we actually didn't have anything in like total insanity to discuss tonight, which is
I mean, I know people, and this has been my theory, is that because Gavin Newsom is a complete narcissist and wants to run for president, we've been lucky in the sense that he has vetoed a good amount of like far left radical stuff, because he knows that if he passes a lot of far left radical stuff, he's not winning any of those swing states. Like, that'll crush him in swing states. He's always reaching for the next brass ring. So thankfully he's been trying to run for president, and that's made him a little bit more moderate than we could expect. He still signed some pretty crazy laws, but there's some stuff he's vetoed, or you're like, yeah, that was a presidential move. I fear who the next governor is going to be, because I feel like the next governor won't have presidential ambitions. Maybe they will. I mean, you're coming out of California. You're one of the largest states. You could always have presidential ambitions. But I fear the next governor will probably be way worse and farther left than Gavin Newsom. So kind of weird. The devil you know, right? Isn't that the saying? The devil you know is better than worst. What's the saying?
I don't know what that saying is. I'm sorry.
The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, or something like that. I don't know. All right. Anyway, let's go for. We'll start here in Michigan.
Your voice, your vote, and we begin tonight with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who is in West Michigan on this 4th of July campaigning for President Joe Biden. 13 on your side's Julia Gorman is here now with what he had to say in Van Buren County at the Democratic Party's 4th of July event in South Haven this afternoon. Julia,
Governor Gavin Newsom was one of 20 Democratic governors to meet with the president just last night behind closed doors. Obviously, a top concern right now for many Americans on both sides of the aisle is, can our current president be successful? Former President Donald Trump. Well, Governor Newsom says yes, and he's not worried. Here's a look at the governor speaking to the crowd at the event in South Haven. He made sure to cite many of the successes of the Biden administration over the last 3.5 years, speaking to that crowd there. He talked about low unemployment rates for women and people of color. He talks about the current president's infrastructure work so far. He also talked about how Biden is working for everyone, Republicans included, citing putting money into many Republican districts over the last few years. Compared to a country led by former President Donald Trump, Governor Newsom compared the two as right and wrong, daylight and darkness.
Joe Biden, regardless of time of life, has a quality of imagination where he's delivered more than.
Oh gosh, what is this? Ad time. Now, what is this stuff? Darn ads. Okay.
Any president in my lifetime in just 3.5 years. I'm old fashioned. I care about, results and outputs, and he's produced. And so, I'll leave more objective minds to judge that. But I'm not looking for a performer in chief. I'm looking for a commander in chief.
Now, Michigan's Republicans are responding to Governor Newsom's visit, saying, quote, Gavin Newsom campaigning in Michigan shows just how out of touch Joe Biden and his team are to Michiganders and the struggles we face here. I hope they enjoy their barbecue, which thanks to Bidenomics is significantly more expensive, end quote. And again, that is according to Michigan Republican Party Chair Pete Hoekstra. Now, for more information on our continuing coverage of the California governor's visit to our state, I send it back to Juliet.
Julia, thank you. Well, our political reporter, Josh Albertus, just spoke to Governor Newsom in a one-on-one interview about his visit to West Michigan today. Coming up tonight at 11 o'clock, why Newsom.
Okay. So that's him in Michigan. Any thoughts particularly to that specific?
Well, the statement, I'm not looking for a performance chief. I'm looking for a commander in chief. Sure. But either way, Biden's failing both. So, I'm tired of Newsom pretending like this is a master class in how to be a president.
Oh gosh, every time he says, "Oh, this is a master class,"
Biden is a master class.
This is a master class.
I'm so tired of everyone pretending like this is okay. Which I guess we're finally gotten to a point where everyone isn't pretending like this is okay, but Gavin's pretending. And he still has 2 years left in California, and we don't have, we're still having issues, major issues, not minor issues. We always talk about, like, he needs to get back here. He needs to govern this state. He doesn't need to be out campaigning for a brain dead president.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of just like got that budget deal done and he's like wiped his hands and now he's like back out on the campaign trail already. So it's like, and I don't even think the budget deal resolves the deficit. I think they have to borrow a lot and they declared a state of emergency regarding the budget, which shows that, I mean, if there's a state emergency regarding your state's budget, like that's not a good sign. And you probably shouldn't be gallivanting around the country to campaign for a president who you have to. And I think what makes it even more laughable at this point that Gavin Newsom's doing this is, he's smart enough to look at what happened at that debate and go, he is not capable of being president anymore.
Oh,
like he's just
looking
not.
at it going, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's deep down, he's going, yes. That's why he went to the debate as a quote unquote surrogate. Like, nobody, I don't think anyone asked him to be there as a surrogate. I think he just went as a surrogate to be on the floor. And like, he was in the right place at the right time where it's like, okay, now all these people are freaking out about how bad Biden's performance was. But like, he's smart enough to know, if there's anything I give Gavin Newsom credit for, he's savvy, smart politician. He knows that Biden's days are numbered and he's trying to play. And I think we called this. I think we knew that like he would play like the reluctant kind of like savior if it comes to that, where it's like, he's going to be a good little soldier for Biden as long as he needs to be. He's not going to look like he's going for a power grab. He's not going to look like he's trying to undermine him. But if it comes down to it and somebody's like, hey, you would be a better choice to run for president right now than Joe Biden, we need you. I could be like, okay, fine, I guess I'll run for president. Like, that's what I think we believed was going to happen all
Anything
along.
to keep Trump out, I'll save my country.
If it's about saving democracy and I have a PAC called Campaign for Democracy, then I guess I will. So that's, I think he's doing his part and he's doing it. And I think in a weird way, ironically, him doing this and smiling through his teeth and being like, everything's fine, Biden's putting on a masterclass, you look more disingenuous and like a liar because everyone knows what you're saying is not true. Like, everyone's like, like, we know you're lying. Like, you're lying through your teeth, which makes you look more like a lying scumbag. So why are voters going to trust you? So anyway, and then he went off after Michigan. You think he'd return to come back to his state. and, you know, address all the issues of crime and the budget and all that stuff, wildfires. But he didn't. Instead, he went on to New Hampshire, which is usually known as a kind of testing ground for presidential candidates in primary. So it's weird he went to New Hampshire. I wonder why.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is in New Hampshire. He's campaigning for President Biden right now. But many voters are saying they'd rather see someone like Newsom at the top of the ticket. WBZ's Louisa Moeller is live on the campaign trail. She joins us now. And Louisa, I know you just spoke with Governor Newsom.
Yeah, Lisa, while some Democrats have signaled or flat out called for President Biden to step aside, Governor Newsom, once again, right here, said he maintains his staunch support for the president. He dismissed any questions.
Oh, gosh, another. What is with these ads?
Very targeted ad, Phil.
Yeah, I don't know what this ad is. If you want to be a 100,000K earner, no, thank you.
Says he has full confidence in his cognitive and physical abilities, but he is concerned about Donald Trump's record and his fitness for office. As you said, of course, Gavin Newsom's name has been tossed around as a possible alternative to a Biden candidacy and potentially a top 2028 contender. So I asked him, what if the Democratic National Convention in August is a brokered convention? Here's what he said.
I think that's a legitimate question and I respect it. But it's also exactly the question that Donald Trump is hoping everyone asks as he's out on the golf course. So to me, that is not a question I'm going to respond to because Joe Biden is our nominee. He's our president. He's not the presumptive nominee. He's going to be our nominee. And I look forward to voting for him and not just advocating for him on November.
But if not, now, at the same time of this, a post-debate poll conducted by St. Anselm's here in New Hampshire found that New Hampshire voters are swinging in the direction of Donald Trump. So today we took the temperature of voters and asked them how they feel about the state of the race. As sure as scrambled eggs and pancakes hot off the griddle, politics are served up at the Dairy Diner.
Trump back in office.
And right now, they come with a side of uncertainty.
I'm feeling that this race is just dividing the entire country, and it's a pretty sad thing.
For months, President Joe Biden has held a roughly 10-point lead over former President Donald Trump among New Hampshire voters. But a new poll by St. Anselm College conducted after Mr. Biden's stumbling debate has the Granite State swinging. Trump leading with 44% support to Biden's 42%, which is within the margin of error.
The good news for Democrats is that on the generic ballot, where you say, do you prefer a Democrat or Republican, Democrats still hold a 3-point lead. But that also does show how weak the candidate himself, Joe Biden, is in a state like New Hampshire.
We took the temperature of voters in Derry, won by Trump in 2020 by roughly 800 votes.
When Trump was president, I was doing a lot better than I am now. I find myself cutting corners everywhere to try and save a couple of dollars.
That was the most like New England, New Hampshire guy like they could ever found. That was a thick New England accent. I was doing a lot better when Donald Trump was the president.
In Manchester, won by Biden last cycle at a political hotspot, Red Arrow Diner.
I know what he stands for, democracy, and I'd like to keep him right where he is.
Voters are also digesting calls by some Democrats for President Biden to step aside.
What do you say to those people who are concerned?
Well, they have a reason to be concerned, but I think he would still be a good president for 4 more years.
One of the most fervent calls coming from Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton.
But what I'm imploring the president to do is just think yourself, Mr. President, about what's best for America, because this is not about you. It's about our country.
Now, in 2020, President Biden took New Hampshire by roughly 7%, snagging the state's 4 electoral votes. They're just 4 votes, but they could be critical this coming November general election.
Okay. Gavin Newsom.
Question. At the beginning of the video, did Newsom say Trump is out on the golf course? Like it was a bad thing?
Yeah, like Trump doesn't have to do anything right now. He's not
Like,
president. Why? Who cares
exactly.
who's out?
Like, oh, he's just out on the golf course. And what's your point?
And
You're not in your
what it-
state. So
Yeah, and you're not governing California. So what's the big deal here? He's not president. He has no responsibility to do. I mean, his
Not
company's
anything
being run
elected.
by other people.
he's a private citizen right now.
He's a private citizen. He can do what he wants if he wants. Wouldn't it be better that he's out on the golf course and not campaigning while Biden is weak? Wouldn't you? I don't know. I think he forgot that Donald Trump was not president right now. If he was president, maybe that's a zinger, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, he can do whatever he wants. If he wants to golf all the way until election, who cares? Like, that's what Donald Trump can do.
Yeah.
And I think, not to veer too much into presidential politics because we're at a little over time right now, but I've been pretty impressed with how President Trump, former President Trump, Donald Trump, has kind of kept quiet during all of this and been very restrained.
Calm down.
And I think a lot of people expected him to jump on Truth Social and go nuts over this, but he's kind of just kept quiet. He's kind of stayed in the background. He's been golfing. He just does his thing. And I think it's pretty brilliant on his part to kind of be like, I'm not going to announce my VP pick, even though I said I was going to. I'm just going to lay low for a while. It's been almost 2 weeks at this point. 2 weeks at this point, I think, since the debate. So whoever's advising him is nailing it on the head, because there's no reason to interrupt your enemy while they're making a mistake. And the whole news cycle for 2 weeks has been Biden looking like an old senior and how he can't run the country. And it just continually gets worse and worse and worse. So I know he had a rally tonight down in Florida. He looked like he was having a good time. He seemed like pretty good jovial spirit. But yeah, he's been pretty restrained, letting the Democrats do their own damage control and freak out. So good for him, I guess. Any thoughts?
No, I agree with you.
Okay. Full agreement. Okay, so that's our show for this evening. Those are some of the new laws. A lot of mess. Some don't hate, and one I do hate. Absolutely. So that's what's gone into effect on July 1st. We got some more candidates coming up. It's almost crunch time for election season coming up, because we're almost, it's July. It's August, September, October. It's the last 3 months before election, so it's going to get a little hectic. And so we'll have plenty more candidates on. And as we end every show, make sure you like, share, subscribe, or review. Helps with the algorithm, helps people find us. And if you want to support this show, that is 100% free. Or if you want to actually you want to purchase something, you can purchase this lovely Local Elections Matter t-shirt, which is actually really, really comfortable. It's got this comfortable fabric. It's very stretchy and comfortable, if I do say so myself. You can go check it out by going to CaliforniaUnderground.live, click on shop, and you can see all of our merchandise and products. Help support the show, keep the lights on. And but the 100% way that's free to
Sorry.
The what? The service
There's
fees.
service
And
fees.
we promise we do not charge service fees. There's no hidden service charges for any of our products. But the 100% free way to support our show is to share it with someone who you think would enjoy it. And with that, we'll see you on the next one. Later.